So hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about substitution as to regards with algebra, and it'll follow on a few things from the last lesson. But hopefully by the end of this lesson you'll be able to substitute a number for a pronumeral. If you remember back what a pronumeral was, just where we use those letters in algebra, and we should be able to solve some simple expressions that we're going to look at today. Most of us would have heard of substitutions when we talked about some sort of sport, and in this case here you can see it on the picture there. We've got a substitute being made in soccer where one player is replacing another player. Well, that's exactly the same way that algebra works. So we'll have a look at that as we move forward. Alright, so if you remember back to last lesson, we talked a bit about this. We talked about if you have an unknown amount, so we're assuming that in these bags here, every bag has the same amount of lollies. But because we haven't opened the bag yet to count how many's inside, we don't exactly know how many's in there. So we have to give that a value, but we can't give it a numerical value or write it down a number because we don't exactly know how many's in there. So we talked about how last time if we give it a value, we can usually give it a letter. So we call that x to start with today. We often use x in algebra. And of course, if we look down at the next one below that, well, this time we've got x, but we've also got two more lollies. I know they look like triangles, but they're really lollies. And so we're going to call them x plus 2. And then we get this unusual situation down here where we have, well, this one here is where we have two bags of lollies. So we have x plus another x. So if you think back to how we would write that one, well, we'd know when we write like 2 plus 2, it's the same as two lots of 2 or two groups of 2. So we can write it as x times 2. But in algebra, if you remember back to some of the things we talked about, well, we put the number first, and then we put the pronumeral after that. So we'll often write that as 2x. You'll see that a lot. Just always remember when you see 2x, that actually means 2 times x, not just 2x. Okay, next one. So now we can start to substitute in. So if you read the example at the top, you'll often see where it says if, and it'll usually use these words find quite a bit too, but there's some different ways that we can look at this one. So the first one is going to be, instead of writing the letter A, this time we're going to substitute in 5. So if we did 5 plus 7, we would know the answer would be 12. Very straightforward, really simple one. And again, we go back here to look. This time it's find A equals 5 if A minus 3. So if we're going to put in this time 5 minus 3, our answer is going to be 2. Okay, then we get to this situation again where we have this one here, and be careful of this one because we spoke about this last time. Remember that let's change the colour here. So remember that 3a is the same as writing 3 times a. So we change back again. So then we can go 3 times 5. So our answer is going to be 15. All right, and then you're going to get one more. Got a really strange one down here. Now remember a squared. Okay, so remember if we think back to when we did area of squares and some of the other things we've done like that, well, squared just meant number times itself. So we're going to have a quick look at this one, where we had a times a. If we go back here this time, it's going to be 5 times 5 is going to be 25. As you can see, that's reasonably straightforward. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. If you're still struggling a bit on it and you're feeling a bit like this gentleman just here, a bit confused and a bit bewildered, then there's some more help. You can go to Pearson page 262 and do exercise 5.1. There's some questions there to do, questions 1, 2 and 3. Be a bit aware when you go out and look at some of the videos around that some of them are very complex and jump ahead pretty quickly. But hopefully this makes sense. If you need some more help, please come and see me after class.